The argument has been made that made in America, made in USA is the best way to get your everyday carry stuff, your tools, your outdoor stuff, survival, prep, man cave, all that type of stuff. Is it the best or is it overrated? Well, I just did a video talking about why you should strive to get made in America. And now I'm going to do a video arguing why it might be overrated. This video is not don't buy made in America. This video is why it could be overrated and why you shouldn't stress out about it so much. So today we're gonna have a little bit of the Marine X blend. Trying this out. Maybe this is gonna go hot for sale for all sorts of folks, but we'll see how this goes. Have a slight espresso. We'll do 18 grams of beans, 36 grams of coffee for espresso, and see how that works out. But we are so big on buying American. You know, some folks are within the community are so big on like buying made in America. And I don't know if they can particularly argue a specific reason why it's a necessity to always buy made in the USA. So I'm going to argue the counterpoints to why folks would argue that you should buy made in the USA. And maybe some of my counter arguments may make sense to make you feel more comfortable when you make that purchase for your next knife, for your next flashlight, clothing item, piece of survival kit, whatever, and it's not made in the USA, okay? I don't want you to get too butthurt about it. First off, the argument we hear oftentimes is jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Made in America brings jobs. I even talked about this in the video that I created, and it is true that when you play as fuck up, and it is true that when you make stuff in America, you are hiring Americans to do that job. But it's not always true that it's the most beneficial for getting that product or getting that item to be used by getting the most amount of jobs within an American company. Let me give you an example. So, when it comes to a company such as, wait one moment, let's let this bang out real quick. When you have companies such as, I'll give you some examples of some of my favorite American companies, Nutsack, Brown Buffalo, you know, Benchmade, Montana Knife Company, TKL Knives, great made in American companies, right? But it can be argued to say that the number of employees that are at Benchmade is around 400. Maybe they're closer to 500 now. And the number of employees that could work for a corporation like Benchmade is, let's say if they were a large retailer and they had stores all over the nation and they were getting their knives made in China, could be in the thousands. For example, if Harbor Freight, the tool company that you see, you see in a lot of different neighborhoods and they sell tools and all that good stuff, if Harbor Freight made all of their tools, which they do not, it is argued to say that they may have one or two facilities that they would make their tools in, and they will probably have to sell their tools inside of other people's stores. Because it would be hard to be Harbor Freight, the tool manufacturer. Like, you don't see DeWalt stores, you don't see Milwaukee stores. Those places make tools and they sell them and distribute them in different distributors. It can be argued to say that if Benchmade made their knives overseas, they can go from hiring 400 employees, 400 Americans, to thousands of more jobs because of their distribution. You know, maybe the people that work in the Benchmade facility will lose their jobs, but if they were now making, tons more knives per year, and they needed more people to work in these distribution centers, more people to work at the places like Cabela's or REI or Shields or any of these places that physically sell knives, it could be argued to say because they make so many more knives, so many more products, that they bring more jobs. I mean, look how many employees that Harbor Freight has. They have a ton of employees and they make very few products that they sell in their stores are made in America, and Harbor Freight makes none of the products. Okay, they have a few products they sell that are made in America by other companies. So when you hear jobs, 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 it is true that when you make your product in the States, that it can bring jobs. It will produce jobs. But it also can be argued that when you make those somewhere else, that you may be producing more jobs for certain things. Now, this is not true for everything. I am reaching out of my ass to make this one work specifically because I think it could be argued to say that a American job for someone who's making an American product may be something that is more attractive to the country as a whole. But would you rather have three jobs or would you rather have one job? That's just one thing to think about. The second thing to think about when it comes to jobs is just because you're making something, adapting something, or you have something in the United States does not mean that there are always going to be Americans working those jobs. Large golf courses, places that need to have their fruits and vegetables harvested, other things that work in that type of stuff, bring in workers on temporary visas from Mexico, Canada, different places to work those jobs that Americans don't want to work. So the products are made in America. You're getting American made eggs or lettuce or some cabbage or your golf course is maintained, but the actual people that are doing the work are not American. That looks that looks pretty good. We're trying out the Marine Expo land. You know, we'll see if it's something that we decide to do. Make a lot of coffee on these EDC cup videos. So we might have to make that happen. Number two, okay, the jobs one, I think that's something that you could argue, but I think on the counterpoint, you can argue it as well, okay? But the second one is almost impossible to argue against, saving the cold hard cash, okay? When you make stuff overseas, it is argued to say that if you are a consumer and you're trying to get the best bang for your buck, that for the most part, you may get a better bang for your buck buying a product that was made overseas than buying a product that was made here in the States. You know, the quality may be significantly better for that multi-tool that's made in the States. The quality may be significantly better for that knife that's made in the States. But if you can get 80% of that knife, 80% of that multi-tool, and spend 30% of what it would cost to buy it made in America, I think that might be a prudent decision for you and your family. You know, a lot of people make their decisions to buy Kaiser knives or Kubi knives, We Knife, Savivi, any of the other plethora of overseas knife makers. And they make quality products and they're doing it for a significantly less amount than their American counterparts. Now, things can affect that, supply and demand, high-end materials, even for stuff that's overseas. If tariffs are placed on countries that produce those products and then those tariffs are passed down through the actual manufacturing process and eventually to the customer, those all can affect pricing and cost. But overall, you're gonna save money buying overseas. Oh, that tastes great. I'm not trying to like toot my own coffee blend horn because the first few cups of this that I made were horrible. I didn't dial in the espresso right. It was horrible with a hard H. The next one is buying overseas forces innovation. If you're buying stuff overseas and if you believe that American companies have become stale, they're no longer innovating. They're just kind of slapping out the same stuff over and over. Using your money to speak can force innovation, force improvements for American companies. It doesn't have to just be innovation on new products. It can also be just process improvements. I'll take the example I gave in the Made in America one. Tactile Knife has been blamed on some of their knives for quality control issues. For instance, this is the Tactile Knife Chupacabra, and some folks complained about the actual jipping on the pull down to release the super lock itself. And say for instance that Tactile Knife, now Tactile Knife is not one of those companies. I'm using them as an example. This is not true of Tactile Knife, but let's just say that Tactile Knife completely ignored their customers, did not care that you complained about the jipping or the action wasn't good or if the blade wasn't centered. Let's just say they don't care about any of that. They're just going to lean heavy on the fact that they're made in America. Get over it, Bubba. It is what it is. You speak with your money by buying a similar knife or a knife that's made overseas, Taiwanese, Italian, Chinese, whatever. And now, when their revenue goes down because they're not listening to their customers, they can either innovate or they can fix the issues which are clearly defined that have already been told to them tons of times by their different customers. So sometimes buying overseas forces American companies to get their shit together. Next, one could say that whenever we buy stuff overseas, we have the opportunity to be a world player. Okay. I'm rooting for the home team, America first for me, all that good stuff. But there are economies in the world where if some of these American companies select to make their products in those countries, it can be significantly help boost that economy for those people. There's so much stuff that needs to be done here in the States. I have cousins that live in the hood and they could use a good job. I totally hear that argument. Folks that live in Appalachia, folks that live in the Midwest, flyover states, et cetera, they could use good jobs. However, I have family that live in Venezuela, that live in Trinidad, who probably make, for every dollar that I make, they probably make 8 to 9 cents for the same amount of time and work that they put in. The same, 3 bedroom, 2 bath house with a pool that you may buy here in my neighborhood, which may cost you upwards of $600,000. Down in Venezuela, same thing. We basically can snatch up a house for 6 or 7 grand with a butler. Okay. So it shows that sometimes selecting a country that needs the innovation that could lift up the people can do a couple of things. Bring jobs to folks, but whenever you bring jobs to males, bring jobs to a country, it normally brings down the violence level. Look at the places in America which are the most dangerous. Places in America which are the most dangerous are the places that have the least amount of significantly higher paying jobs. Whenever men have work, they usually are able to keep themselves busy. They're also normally able to find vagina because they are more gainfully employed. They're not necessarily always running the streets. I'm taking this argument to the end. Hit the like button down below because I'm pulling this one out of my ass. But it may be a true thing. I've been to a lot of countries all over the world, Belize and Trinidad, and to plenty of countries in the Middle East, Spain, Bahrain, Eritrea, Djibouti, plenty of places where I saw the poverty in real life, where if a company were to select to make their next product over in that specific place, it may be significantly worth it to be a world player. Finally, my last argument is if we are able to make certain products overseas, say for instance a redundant product, fidget toys, certain knives, certain flashlights, whatever, then the big brain thinkers that are here in America can focus their attention on something else. The reason we make so much clothing overseas is because it becomes so redundant. Once you have the quality materials, the same people that innovate, the same people that work here could use their resources and their skills elsewhere. It's not true in every single industry, but it can be true in some industries. And having the way to be able to source those products overseas instead of having to do it here in the States may be a way to ensure that we're always at the tip of the spear when thinking of new shit. But I literally just pulled all this stuff out of my ass. No notes, kind of talking about why buying American could be overrated, could be just blindly supporting a company doesn't treat their employees well. All those things could be true. Comment down below. Do you think that made in America, buying America all the time is overrated? Do you think like America all the way, you don't care what the cost is or what it means for anything else? Let me know with your comments down below. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you a part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.